Let's go to our topic of the week. Investment in Indonesia continues to increase, although the flows of foreign direct investment or FDI in the world remain low. However, the increase in investment is still unable to cope with the country's high unemployment rate.
The Investment Ministry or Investment Coordinating Board (BKPM) reported recently that in the first semester of 2023, the total investment realization reached 678.7 trillion rupiah, or about $42.85 billion, an increase of 16% year-on-year. Meanwhile, in the second quarter of 2023, investment realization reached 349.8 trillion rupiah, an increase of 15.7% on an annual basis and 15.7% compared to the previous quarter. The total investment during the first semester accounted for 48.5% of the government's investment target of 1,400 trillion rupiah in 2023. Meanwhile, in 2022, investment realization reached 1,207.2 trillion rupiah, exceeding the target of 1,200 trillion rupiah. Investment during the first semester of 2023 was still dominated by foreign direct investment or FDI, which amounted to 363.3 trillion rupiah, or 53.5% of the total investment realization. Meanwhile, direct domestic investment or DDI reached 315.4 trillion rupiah. Meanwhile, OECD report indicates in the first quarter of 2023, global FDI flows tripled from very low levels recorded in fourth quarter of 2022, reaching $440 billion. However, on a year-on-year basis, global FDI flow remained 25% below the level recorded in the first quarter of 2022. Minister of Investment or head of BKPM, Lahadalia, said in a recent press briefing that the government was optimistic that the 2023 investment target could be achieved, given the high growth recorded during the first semester. He believes the growth will continue in the second semester as the confidence of foreign and domestic investors in investing in Indonesia remains high. In the first semester of 2023, investors tended to invest in capital and technology industries. The 5 capital-intensive sectors are basic metal industry, non-machinery and equipment, transportation, buildings and telecommunications, mining industry, housing, industrial and office areas, as well as the chemical and pharmaceutical sectors. As the number of labor-intensive industries continues to decline, labor absorption is also falling. As reported by BKPM, the labor absorption during the second quarter of 2023 reached 464,289 people, or around 849,180 people in the first semester. This figure is relatively small compared to the investment value. In the first quarter of this year, the workforce absorbed by foreign investment or PMA projects was only 146,293 people. BKPM data indicates that the ratio of labor absorption to investment rose at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, with labor absorption reaching 1,399 people per 1 trillion rupiah investment. However, it dropped in 2021 with only 1,340 people being absorbed per 1 trillion rupiah investments. Last year, Indonesia's investment realization reached an all-time high of 1,207 trillion rupiah, yet it only managed to absorb 1,305 workers. Unfortunately, this trend continues this year, with the labor absorption ratio in the first quarter being only 1,169 people per 1 trillion rupiah investments. The government needs to issue policies that encourage the growth of labor-intensive industrial sectors, as they are still needed to accommodate unskilled workers. However, BKPM head Lahadalia has acknowledged the upward trend in investment in capital. and technology-intensive industrial sectors cannot be stopped, and investment in labor-intensive industries will naturally decline. The government should invest in vocational education and training now rather than later to provide younger generations with the skills demanded by the labor market. The skills will help them to take advantage of the increase in job opportunities. Such initiatives are needed to enable Indonesia to take the advantage of a demographic bonus, which will peak in 2030, during which the number of productive age population will be greater than the non-productive population. Therefore, we need an immediate breakthrough to solve the problem. If not, the projected demographic dividend will instead be a devastating disaster.
Back on Economic Outlook, the flows of foreign direct investment to Indonesia have continued to increase in recent years. However, the sharp increase in the FDI has given little impact in resolving unemployment problem. And here our guest this afternoon, Pak Nurul Ichwan, Deputy Minister for Investment Promotion at Ministry of Investment BKPM, will discuss the latest trend in direct investment flow as well as its impact of employment in the country. Welcome, Pak Nurul, to Economic Outlook. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Mbak.
First question, Pak Nurul. The foreign direct investment have been on a downward pressure lately amid the growing economic and geopolitical uncertainties in the world. Do the global uncertainties also affect the FDI flows into Indonesia?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is a great concern globally in terms of the growth of economy globally, because we know that some influences coming from different factors and angles finally resulted into the situations that economic growth is going very slow down. If we could see, let's say, for the global economic growth, if we compare between 2022 to the predictions of 2023 and 2024, we could see that in 2022, the growth was around 3.5 globally, right? And then for 2023, it is predicted that the growth will be slowing down into 3.0. But then in 2024, this will be getting worse, around 2.9% of the growth. And if we could see the differences between the advanced economy and also the developing economy, we could see that the developed economy, they show even worse growth of economy of them. They are growing by 2.6 in 2022, and in the 2023, that will be only 1.5, and 2024 worse even into 1.4. But in the developing countries, this development tends to be stable. So it was 4.1 in 2022, and 2023 and 2024, it is predicted that they are going to be staying at 4.0. And now, in terms of the investment, it impacts also into, the impacts of the slowing growth of the global economy into Indonesia. Based on the data that we are having so far, thanking to the situations that we are having, that Indonesia, so far, we haven't got any negative impact into this kind of slowing growth.
Oh, okay.
Because the investment in Indonesia is still keep growing. As we know that the target for investment that was given by the President of Indonesia into Ministry of Investment, it's keep growing. And for this year, we are having the target is around 1,400, right, for this. And for this, we are receiving already 75% of our target. Wow. So it means that the remaining, the last of 3 months, we could achieve, hopefully, keep fingers crossed, that we could achieve the target that is already decided by the President. And why is it happen in Indonesia that we are not so far impacted into this negative growth of economy? It is just because the policy set by the government is on very right track.
Okay.
It means that situations globally is getting worse, and especially because of pandemic, right? That the demand globally is slowing down. And now we have the thing that instead of having this kind of slowing down, we have also new trends in the technology and economy.
Right.
Among others is about EV. And with this EV, we have a very beneficial positions because we have the reserve of these nickels that is main component for these EV batteries. So by having the policy that we are not exporting the raw materials, but inviting downstream industry to come to Indonesia by utilizing our comparative advantage of this nickel, now this gives contributions into the investment in Indonesia.
Right. So everything is actually looking good so
far, yes.
for Indonesia.
But we cannot be
too optimistic?
too optimistic because whatever situations globally happen, Indonesia will get this impact. But how worse will be the impact, it is depending on the policy that we design by the government and working together with the private sector.
All right. Yeah. Now, Pak Nurul, as we know that one of the main goals of this foreign direct investment is actually to provide jobs.
Yes.
For the country's large workforce. How big is the contribution of all this foreign investment in coping with the unemployment rate in our country so far?
Yeah. We know that the employment absorptions of the investment when, let's say, we compare in the year when the technology absorptions is not that huge. So we could see that manpower absorptions is very high as well. But then the thing that we cannot avoid, it is unavoidable, the situations that technology interventions is significantly very high. And these situations caused by not only about the technology itself, but normally it is just a kind of impact of the innovations. And these innovations was designed by the countries having problem with the populations, the aging populations, like in the advanced economy or advanced country, like in Europe, in America, in Japan. So because of answering these kind of situations, they have to do innovations, and finally they know that the shortage of manpower should be replied by having technology. Worse than situations in the angle of interest of our absorptions of manpower, interventions of technology finally creating even more efficient process of productions that could create the final situations that the company could have better competitions. So they finally have this kind of norm. Instead of utilizing of manpower as factor of productions, then they substitute this with the technology. And this technology finally is brought about by them into the developing country as well. Even though like in Indonesia or ASEAN countries in general, that we have sufficient enough of supply of manpower. But because the new norm of the technology owner and capital owner in terms of efficiency, they bring this technology inside of us. So they just utilize this technology more than the manpower. So that's why this is happen not only in the manufacturing sectors or secondary sectors, but it is also happening in the tertiary sectors or services. And in Indonesia and other ASEAN countries, for example, the development in these services, it is also showing bigger investment. But then absorbance of this manpower is getting lesser and lesser. It means that in the tertiary sectors or services, they also adopt technology more. And they still absorb less manpower.
Now, would you say that this trend is actually going to be stronger and stronger? As you know, we have more and more influence of technology going to the future.
Indeed, that's the message. Because the thing that I learned, let's say, we visited a country like, let's say, China. China is always interesting to be analyzed, right? Because China itself, the country having the huge population, they still adopt technology. Something that amazed us even, they use the technology that is not invented by them. They adopted German technology. And they developed this manufacturing for automotive by using this technology. Something that was also, it's just a kind of joke as well, but it is seriously happened. When we visited facilities in this manufacturing of automotive, they mentioned that we employ these robotics and automations in our manufacturing industry. And the CEO mentions to me that, you know, Pak Nurul, even though we just switch all the light off, they still could work 24 hours.
They're still productive.
Yes.
Very productive.
Indeed. So it means that they save the energy and they still keep increasing the productivity. So this is something even happened in China. So it means that in the United States and in Europe, it will be getting worse. And if they come to invest in Indonesia, they will use less and less manpower.
That's right.
So this is something that is very unavoidable. So this is something that in the future, even though now the absorption of manpower in Indonesia is low, but it is still considered high. when we compare into the situations that innovations and technology will take over some of the part of job that should be absorbed by the manpower.
I see, Pak Nurul. Now, if I can just read this statistic that the rate of labor absorption to investment in Indonesia is still relatively small. The statistic is that at about 1,305 workers per 1 trillion rupiah investment in 2022. What do you think of these numbers, Pak Nurul?
Yeah, so that is also the impact. If we could see, the data, sorry, I have to read the data, for example. So let's say for the top 10 sectors of investment, we compare with between 2015 and 2022, the same industries there. So for example, this leather good and footwear industry. The investment, let's say it is only about 1 trillion. And the manpower absorptions is about 63,000.
Right.
63,390 to be exact. And that was in 2015. The same industry, in 2022, the investment value is 9.5 trillion, more than 9 times compared to 2015.
Yes.
But the manpower absorptions was only 10,000.
Wow. Wow.
So 1 trillion in 2015 absorbed 63,000.
Yes.
And 9.5 trillion in 2022 absorbed only 10,000.
That is a very devastating statistics right there.
That's right.
See.
Yeah. But it is the situations of business. We cannot complain about the situations that the business moving forward into this kind of directions. So it means that we have to think about the possibility of having new job creations in the new businesses with a new skill that might be, it is not predictable by us until now, but it could be possible to be created in the next 5 to 10 years. So in this case, the thing that we have to aware of that we have disruptions about this technology. But technology will bring about also new opportunities. So the comparisons between industry and industry is actually not directly answering about our concerns on the absorptions of manpower. Because there will be some other new technology bringing new job opportunities with the new skills. Now the thing that we have to discuss is about what would be the skill that is required for the future business that will be booming.
Exactly. That brings me to my next questions. Indonesia actually has a huge labor force, but mostly cannot find jobs due to the lack of skills, as you mentioned before. What has the government done so far to improve our skills so that we can also benefit from available job opportunities or the future job opportunities that may come?
As we know that the educational system that we are having so far, we know people complain that the mismatch of this educations and also job opportunities that is created by the private sector, for example. It is just because we know that Indonesia is not a country that we could design. Whatever the industry that we would like to have could be created at home. Because advancements in the technology or even advancement in the technology in Indonesia is still very low. Unlike advanced countries like United States, Europe, Japan, or even Korea, they know what they want. They have the technology. And do we have any way in order to advance our technology? Yes. And normally it is done by, let's say, a country like Saudi Arabia, in the Middle East. They have capital, but they don't have technology. The way they did was buying the technology to be implemented at home, developing the ecosystem of industry. But it requires a very huge capital to do so. So in Indonesia, we don't have that kind of capacity. So the thing that is done by the government then, we just design the educations that could answer skill that is required for industry to be set in Indonesia by having the school that we call by vocational school. Vocational school. And this vocational school, in the future, I should say that should be a kind of sitting together between industry, government, and also institutions of education. The triple helix of them should design what will be the next requirement of manpower that will be highly demanded by the industry. So that is the thing. And in this case, we could also actually offer a kind of model that working between private sectors and institutions like universities, they work together. They don't have to develop their own training, educational or vocational, but this could be done by universities, working together with the government. They just let us know, because in the pace of investment of realization, they have a kind of constructions, and these constructions normally this will take around 2 to 3 years. And for these 2 to 3 years, actually they could just send this requirement into the government, to the campus. We need this kind of qualifications of manpower. And for these 2 or 3 years, we provide this manpower, then finally this will supply to this industry. So that will create mismatch, because this will put together between private sectors looking for the manpower by the campus and the government that create the job and, the manpower for this industry.
Is this currently undergoing? Is this what the government is
being discussed. Yeah, and it is already very long that we would like to have this kind of thing. At the time we launched that the government would like to have this kind of vocational as our main program as well.
Right. Now, Pak Nurul, we know that the general election is really coming up within months, and it's pretty much heating up at the moment. Do you think that the upcoming general election will affect the investment coming into the country?
Yeah, many private sectors in abroad especially, they keep asking about this matter as well, having a kind of worried by the example going around the globe in other countries that could be possible to be having this kind of situations. But we could see that so far, since the reform era, we have already been running some elections, and they have been running very good so far. It had no negative impact into our economy. That is slowing down, keep waiting and seeing for that time. But this will also, let's say, last for, let's say, 6 months, for example. And after that, this will back into the normal pace again for this investment. And for Indonesia, the predictions for the next, we don't see that the candidates so far that we know publicly, we don't see any significant contradictions on the national interests of Indonesia. Let's say we just take some indications, 2 points at least. When we talk about downstream industry, none of these candidates, they against this policy of downstream industry. The second one is talking about new capital of Nusantara. None of them also against with this. So with these 2 examples, that is very huge topic that we are having so far, we don't see any frictions
that's right.
from both candidates. So we could have done the reason that we don't have to be worried about elections happening in Indonesia.
Okay.
So the thing then, we have to be careful, because something that was happened in the previous elections, even the post-elections, between those who wins and those who lose, they have to know that after elections, we put our united of sense to be our Indonesians again, whoever the leaders of these nations. That's very important. But then if we just keep going and maintaining the quarrel after these elections, that could be serious disaster for economy of Indonesia. So I just would like to remind politicians, please bear in mind for your next step, if you did something wrong, you will sacrifice the economy of Indonesia.
Okay. Be a good sportsmanship, of course.
Yes,
and
of course.
Keep the peace in Indonesia. Thank you so much for that last message. Deputy Minister for Investment Promotion, Ministry of Investment, BKPM, Nurul Ichwan, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on economic outlook.
Thank you. Thank you, Valisa.